everybody. This is the FCA Brown Bag about social media advertising basics. I have joining me Emmeline Brandt, who works with StatWax. It's a small agency in Fishers. They specialize in digital marketing, mostly for higher ed and fundraising, I think specifically, right? Emmeline, I'll actually let you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more, and just jump in when you're ready to get started.
Awesome. Sounds good. Well, hello, everyone. I'm also new to this webinar mode, so it's a little weird to not see everybody's faces, but all good here. So yeah, like Ashley said, my name is Emmeline. I am a senior SEM strategist at StatWax, and I've been with the company for about 2 years now. And like she said, we specialize in our Fishers office in higher education marketing, as well as we do some with fundraising for different colleges as well. And we also have another office in Dallas where they're more focused on B2B and customer acquisition. But I think being a part of our higher education team and what we're looking to discuss here today will be beneficial. So yeah, excited to be here. I'm gonna get my screen shared real quick. Oh, Ashley, it's saying that host disabled attendee screen sharing.
All right, I've just changed it so all panelists should be able to share. Got it?
Perfect. Yep, I think it's popping up now.
Great. And then for everybody, I do have the Q&A and the chat boxes open. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them into the Q&A box and we can get to those at the end. All right.
Perfect. All right. Well, I'm getting my screen shared here. And also plan to kind of go back and forth between some of just the presentation slides that I put together, but also going through the platform as well, because that's the best way to kind of learn or see how these things work for you. So first off, just saying Facebook Ads 101. And the first thing we kind of want to jump into here is the difference between boosted posts and running actual Facebook ads. So I know it's kind of hard because I can't see everybody, but I know just seeing, I know probably more of you are familiar with boosted posts, as this is something you can do directly from the Facebook page and just kind of there's a promote button. You can set an audience and then kind of launch those. And then Facebook ads is kind of what I'm here to talk about today. So jumping into kind of boosted posts and the pros and cons to running this type of ad. The one thing is that it's very simple. They're very easy to set up and kind of manage, and you can reuse content that exists already on your Facebook page or your Instagram profile, making that pretty easy to use. But some of the cons to why boosted posts aren't always that great is there are a lot of limits to kind of what you can control and who you're marketing to. I know it's easy when you're just setting up to kind of market to people that already like your page, things like that. But if you kind of want to get more insight into where people are clicking from or kind of where they're located more than just at like a state level, you kind of don't have as much access to this in the boosted platform or when you're running a boosted post. And so that's kind of why we recommend or excited to talk about setting up Facebook ads. So a lot of the benefits or pros to using a Facebook ads account to manage your ad campaigns is the advanced targeting capabilities, the ability to set campaign objectives, as well as have more control over the ad placements that you're using, along with just more creative control in building out things specifically for ad campaigns. Throwing on here cons, one thing is it takes a little bit more time to set up and there is a little bit of a kind of learning curve to it, but also at the end of the day, it's definitely worth it and kind of what you're able to do with setting up campaigns. Awesome, awesome. All right, and Ashley, you're watching questions and stuff too as they come in, right?
Yep, I'm on it, we're good.
Perfect, perfect. All right, so first thing, kind of just want to explain or talk through is setting up a Facebook ads account. So I think we can kind of go through these steps and what it is to set up a Facebook account. It's kind of like a pyramid of sorts. So you usually set up a business manager account that then manages kind of all of your ads accounts. And then you have like an ads manager to manage your campaigns. So this is kind of the lowest level of something that needs to be set up to manage your campaigns. And in these slides, we'll kind of go through them quickly, and then I'll show you in the platform. The first step is going to business.facebook.com to set up a business account. So kind of if this is something that you guys are looking to do, this will kind of be set up as like the main level where then everything else can be managed in it. And this is where you're able to kind of connect to your Facebook page and get those ads accounts set up. And so in these, you can connect, you usually have one business manager account, and then you can have multiple different ads accounts that manage different pages. And this is where you set up your billing, things like that, along with then creating your ads manager to build your kind of home base for where all of your campaigns will be managed. So I think these steps are helpful, but we'll kind of take a second and jump into the platform. I'll give my screen a second. And so for the purpose of this, I've kind of set up a sample one already, but logging into business.facebook.com, I see things just because we also manage it. I manage accounts already. So that's kind of why stuff is already populated in here. But in here, you'll click to create a business. And so this can be for the national brand. This can kind of be the business account that's set up for that. And then you just put in your name, obviously, and your business email, click submit, and that creates kind of the main first account. And then going into the sample that I created, once you kind of create the account, it'll pop you into like business settings. And this is where you can kind of control and add in more people to start managing things. So I'll go over here to business settings. And then since it's already created, that's why it popped me to that ads manager screen first. And in the business settings, this is where we'll kind of connect all the dots or connect all of the pieces, so then we can get our advertising going. The first priority is in setting up an ads account. So this is so we can kind of manage everything. I've created a test one, but in the case of what you guys are looking to set up, I know nothing currently exists. So what you would do would be come here to click add, and you can just add an account or create a new ad account. So it'll be the option to create a new ad account and set it up from there. There isn't many settings kind of in here. The only thing I would note is when you are creating it, it asks you what this ad account will be used for. If this was like an agency, we would obviously be choosing another business or client because we'll be managing ads for somebody else. But in this case, and since a lot of the pages or kind of accounts will be working together to promote Zeta, then we can just select my business. And on this level or on this ad account is also where you can add in other team members to manage the ads that will be running for the account or for the campaigns. And this is kind of a look at what fields or things are available for people to have access to. Usually we have on a lot of our accounts, we have admin access to everything. There's no real difference between just managing campaigns and managing ads account other than budget. So if there's one person that's kind of responsible for that or making sure the payment method is set up, then they can just have that ad account access, and then everybody else can kind of have the access to just manage campaigns and view performance. So after we kind of have our ads account set up, the next thing to set up is payments. So the payment method for the ad account. And this is one thing I would note and just keep in mind, as I know I don't fully understand like how ads will run or who pays for what, but in one ad account, it will always just be one billing method that can be set up in that account. So if you ever need to have like different people paying for things, or there's kind of different audiences or groups using the ad account, just keep that in mind, that it will charge whatever billing account is on file. And that is, and in this kind of business setting is where you can set that up or change it. It allows you to add as many methods as you want, but you just have to kind of set a primary one. Awesome. And then after kind of we have the payment method and the ad account set up, the next two important things to connect or set up are connecting whatever Facebook pages or Instagram accounts we want to have access to run our ads on or show our ads as that profile. So in this account section is where you can add pages. And for this, it's definitely helpful, and probably in this case as well, as like who's ever manages or is admin of the page also sets up the business account, just makes it a little bit easier. You can always request access if you're not that person. But I think in this scenario, it's a little bit easier to set everything up together. And so in here, there are options. I know pages already exist, so it wouldn't be like creating a new page. But you can just add an existing page by inserting the Facebook page name or the URL that exists for that, and it'll add it to the account or the business account to then be able to be used by the different campaigns that you build out in the ads manager. And then there's also a section in here to connect to your Instagram account as well. I would note that what's kind of unique, or just a kind of a thing about Facebook, is that you don't technically have to connect an Instagram account to be able to run ads on Instagram from a Facebook ads manager. It's just helpful. But if you don't do that, then users aren't able to, like, if they just like click your username, go visit your page, it kind of takes that away. But I know that Zeta does have a Instagram profile, so then it would just be helpful to attach that. So then if users can navigate just to the profile to follow, or if those are actions that we're looking to take. So after kind of basically wrapping up, we've got all of our like ad account set up, done, our pages connected, things like that. Your kind of home base after that point will just be living in this ads manager. And this is where as a person that runs ads, this is where we spend most of our time in just building the campaigns. And this is kind of the area that we will then use kind of going forward to kind of talk through what we need to. But any questions or concerns? Good so far?
We are good so far.
Awesome. All right. And then in here, kind of just want to take another step through. Now we've kind of talked about the initial setup process, which is just one kind of piece of just like making sure you have an account to run ads out of. But now I kind of want to take a step-by-step approach of looking through like the different fields that Facebook is going to ask you to kind of fill out to build a successful campaign, and some of the things that I've learned from doing this for a while. So the first kind of step, once you click that like create button, is what Facebook is going to ask you to choose a campaign objective. And from what I've kind of gleaned from Ashley in our talks, a lot of what your team are going to be looking to do will probably live within the brand awareness, reach, traffic, and engagement. So trying to, whether that's reach a new audience of like recruits, reach people that are already following you, just create more awareness. Those will kind of be the main campaign objectives that are chosen for any given campaign. And what this just helps Facebook do is it gives you a better breakdown of how you're reaching your audience. And so Facebook will then help set a kind of KPI, whether that's like landing page views or like your CPM, which is like cost per 1,000 views, and kind of give you more insight into like how you are reaching those different people. And so this is just kind of the first step in taking that. And I would say there's very few differences in like brand awareness and reach. They kind of attribute to the same KPI. Same with traffic and engagement. Traffic is always more preferred. If you're going to like send them to a landing page or send them to the Zeta website, then that would be the choice there. Awesome. And then next step after kind of setting that campaign objective, what Facebook is going to ask for is setting a budget. And this is just looking at how much you are looking to spend to reach your desired audience. On Facebook campaigns, when you're setting them up in an ads manager, Facebook allows you, this image shows lifetime budget, but you're able to set either lifetime budget or daily budget. So lifetime just means Facebook will kind of spread out your dollars, whatever you give it, over the start and end date or runtime that you set. This is usually what I prefer, especially for like some of the schools. Like, for example, we work with Ivy Tech and we run a lot of like pretty small campaigns. If we're not looking to spend over $1,000, or if we're $500 mark, I typically just set a lifetime budget, just so then we don't really have to monitor, control kind of what our daily budget is happening, and Facebook can kind of optimize to what is working for the platform. And then other thing to note here is this is a kind of a fairly new field for Facebook, and I think it's good to just turn on for a lot of the campaigns, and especially in your guys' case, is campaign budget optimization. So if this was turned off, you could kind of set budgets just by what are called like ad sets, because you'll have a campaign and then ad sets. You could set a different budget for every ad set. But if campaigns are going to be on lower spends, we find it better to just turn on campaign budget optimization, so the platform can kind of try to optimize around all of those different ad sets and spend money where it's going to get spent or reach the right people. So that is something that's always kind of just fine to turn on. And then the other field here is campaign bid strategy. Facebook gives a few different options here, whether it be like low cost bid strategy, or they'll say like target a cost per click. And this is definitely an area that you can get into kind of changing if you know kind of what your clicks usually cost. But I would say in most cases, the preferred is we want to pay the least amount for the clicks that we're getting. And it's typically a fine kind of setting just to leave for Facebook campaigns. Awesome. And then next one, kind of quickly just touching on, after you kind of set the budget, we'll then set start and end dates. You don't always have to set an end date if you kind of know you're going to be monitoring and turning a campaign on and off. But we always find it good to just set both of these. And they are set on an ad set level versus a campaign level. That might seem a little wonky, but usually you can just kind of copy the same settings for all of your ad sets if you're building out like more than one. But in most cases, I know in our cases, we typically aren't. In your cases, you probably won't be either. Awesome. And then this is kind of we'll go into a little bit high level and then go into the platforms to kind of look at this stuff too. But in creating your target audience, there are a lot of different fields and things you get access to when using an ads manager. And the first one being in like location targeting and getting able to hone it in a little bit more. In the example that's kind of in here, I know it just features Indiana, but you can break it down to the exact zip codes that you're looking to target, just certain counties, different areas in that way. You're really able to kind of hone that in. And you can also, I will quickly apologize for my cat because he is going nuts right now. But you can kind of change this, the location targeting in a few different ways with people living in or recently in this location. I know this might be helpful, especially if you're targeting like areas where colleges are, things like that. Students may not live there full time, and this can be a weird signal for Facebook to try to pick up. So you could either just turn this on for people living in the state or living in certain areas, or people that were like recently in that location in that format. And then kind of continuing on creating your target audience, other fields that Facebook gives you access to, and that I'll kind of dive into a little bit more, are the different age breakdowns, gender, and then detailed targeting. And then I think the detailed targeting is really what's beneficial to a lot of the campaigns we run, and I think will be beneficial to a lot of the things that you guys are looking to do, because you are able to take information that's from like different fields on people's profiles. So if they have a school listed, if they have interest in certain things, and build your kind of target audience. So in this example, I know I kind of picked like ages 18 to 20, and then just strictly like women, and they have their school listed as like Indiana University. And then this helps us create a more detailed audience that then maybe you can run a lot more targeted ads to, because you kind of know where they're located, where they are, and kind of where they go to school. So it helps in that manner. Awesome. And then there are a few more things that you can add in here is to like include or exclude, whether that be like this group, but you can exclude like college grads or different things like that if that's beneficial, or kind of narrow your audience if you want to layer things in. Because if you just kind of add everything to the same box, and I'll show this in a minute, it kind of uses what we'd call like an OR formula. So it'll be like if you put Indiana University and like in height, like, and then added in like Purdue University, it would be detailed. The detailed targeting would be like the age, the gender, and then an Indiana University student or a Purdue University student, where if you use the narrow audience, you add one piece in, and then you can kind of narrow it further, because it'll use like Indiana University student and interested in like X, if that kind of makes sense. And I can show that in the platform a little bit more. Awesome. And then another kind of section, and I can show this a little bit more in detail in the platform as well, is connections, which I think will be important, or is a great area for your teams to be utilizing if you're running campaigns. Is you can target people that either already like your page, or people that are friends of people that like your page, or in cases where you're trying to just reach new people, you're able to exclude those who are like already following you. It's just about creating a new audience. And there's a couple more sections in this kind of connections area that we can go dive into. And then what kind of happens as you get to the end of this, and Facebook will always show you, is kind of your audience definition and how big or how many people are going to be out there to reach, which I think is always helpful in that if you kind of know your market, you kind of know how many people you might expect to see, or if there's things you need to do to hone it in. This can kind of help you make sure you're defining it or kind of refining if it's too broad. So I'll kind of hop into the platform here real quick just to show you a few more of these steps within the platform, because I think it's a little bit more helpful. And so in here where we click create, we can kind of see some of these sections we've already gone through in selecting campaign objectives. So for this purpose of this, I'm just going to select reach. And then this is what kind of is pulled up. So this is where you kind of set your campaign name, looking at this in the platform where we can turn on to like optimize our budget for our campaigns, where we look at our ad sets. And this is where kind of then you set your schedule, things like that. If you didn't select campaign budget optimization, then you're setting budgets in here. And we'll just keep whatever Facebook page I have access to for right now, because we won't be publishing anything. But as you can see, this audience definition is what's definitely really helpful in making sure kind of seeing where your audience is. Right now, this is going to be super broad because we're targeting everybody in the United States, but we're able to kind of go down here and add in some more parameters or change who we're targeting. And then I would also call out here, if this is ever something your team is interested in using, it's called custom audiences. And so Facebook allows you, if you have like lists of potential interested recruits or different things like that, you could upload those to the platform and then run like very targeted ads to those groups to try and engage them on social. I would note Facebook does have like audience requirements for lists. They typically like to see like over 1,000 people on a list. It makes for better kind of matching, and it's a little more of like a best practice. But I would also just note that in some cases or things that we've run for some of the like Ivy Tech campuses, things like that, we sometimes still utilize smaller lists while it's not always like a best practice to do that. We still know that we kind of, this audience exists and we want to reach them with a very targeted message. And so we still try to engage them, even though Facebook says it's not the best thing to do, but you can still kind of use those people if you have access to lists like that.
Hey, Emmeline, we do have a question while you're talking about audiences.
Yes.
When you're using connections, is that in addition to the audience parameters that you set, or does it narrow down the people even more? Like if you choose people who like your page?
So it will narrow it down more if you include then like just people who like your page. So yeah, that is something to keep in mind. We typically, like if we're ever using this, I usually like to, like I'll build our new audience and then like exclude people who like our page. And then I'll build like a separate ad set of like the other option of people who like your page if you're wanting to run something to them as well, just so you can compare performance.
Great. And is there a limit to, you said kind of minimum best practice is 1,000 for a list. Is there a maximum?
There is not, that I've heard of. We've uploaded some pretty large lists.
Haven't reached it yet. Okay.
Yeah. Awesome. And then I know, because I also wanted to call out in in this connection section as well, like they do have the Facebook pages, and what you could see in the image was apps. But another field that we've found helpful, or just knowing if we're running ads for like an enrollment event or something with one of our colleges, you can also re-engage people that maybe like RSVP'd to further messaging with them. And this is another kind of area from this connections that we found beneficial to use. And there's also kind of an advanced combinations option where it just tries to throw a few things together. But that's also just a little bit more that you have to add into that, but can still definitely be helpful in kind of finding your audience. Awesome. And then the other thing I'll just touch on too, with if you're ever using lists, what the other thing that the platforms will create, if you're interested in it, is lookalike audience. So if you lookalike audiences, so if you know you have like a really solid list of people that meet your target audience kind of requirements, you can use this, and it's in a different section of the platform. I'll hop over there real quick. And audiences, to take that previous list and build a new audience off of it. So Facebook will take all of those kind of requirements for that list that you provided and try to find more people that match those signals on their platform. So you can find similar users that aren't already on your list, which could also be another great option for like your teams to be using, based on people that you've already kind of engaged with, or already exist, or already part of different like sororities or things like that. This could also be a great opportunity to find more people that are like them, if that is kind of the area you're looking to go in. And that's done, yeah. So this is like an audience section, and this is where you can upload lists and create like a lookalike audience. Or if what I was kind of showing you guys with how we can like build out different demographics and things, you can also create a saved audience. So if you know there's a group that you're typically going to be targeting or using for a lot of different kind of campaigns, it's sometimes even better to just create that audience in a saved audience, and then you can easily just type in the name and add them to your campaign, rather than building the same audience every single time you need to go target them. Perfect. And then I know this was the next kind of thing that I had in the presentation, but also just want to kind of jump back into the platform to talk through it, and that is placements. And I think this is one of the biggest benefits to running an actual like Facebook ads campaign versus just running on like a boosted post, because you can have a lot more control over where your ad is showing or where you want the ads to be placed. So Facebook has quite a few. Let me get this pulled up. They have quite a few different placements that a lot of us probably don't think about when we're like using the platforms, because it's like it's our news feed, it's like stories, it's the explore page on Instagram. So this, in the ad sets, they kind of just lay out everything that's available. And on here, we have kind of automatic placements, which is their obvious recommended. And that's just that they will place the ads kind of for whatever size you submit. And I have linked at the end of this like a best practices for what sizes ads usually are for Facebook and Instagram. They'll kind of just fit them into whatever placements they have available. Where we typically at StatWax, we usually opt for manual placements, just so we can have a little bit more control over where our ads are showing or what ad shows in each position. And so here you can just kind of see the different placements on Facebook, Instagram, and also what's called like Facebook's audience network. And so those are just placements on just different apps or things that are connected with Facebook. So I think in a lot of the cases for maybe you guys, it's also okay or like best to just opt out of those, because you're likely trying to just engage people that are on Facebook or on Instagram or in those areas versus some of the things that are typically included in the audience network. And so here's where you can kind of select out of those some things. So down here are apps and sites, and those are the things that Facebook typically tries to kind of opt you into, but you can check those boxes to not be a part of those. And I think also just another best practice or something to look at is if you know what ad sizes you have or you are like looking to run, I usually try to opt out of things that I know we don't have an ad size for, just because looking at when you go back and then like look at what some of those ads look like, it may not be the best representation that you're looking to have for like your brand or your kind of company, things like that, especially in the cases of, I don't know if any of you have seen this, where like if you're going through Instagram stories and sometimes somebody will have like an ad, you'll see a Instagram story ad that doesn't actually fit in the placement, and so it'll be like a rectangle image with a bunch of text below it, which isn't a great ad for that placement. You want to kind of try to meet the 9:16 requirement that they have, and so I usually try to uncheck boxes for anything where I'm like, I don't think our ad fits in there. But there's also preview tools within the platform, so you can kind of see what your ad looks like in each placement, and I can show you guys that here in a second. Awesome. And so this is kind of where you'll go to kind of manage where your ad is being shown. I would say one thing that we've found helpful, and I think especially could be helpful for your teams as well, is if you're looking to do recruitment and it is a lot younger of a demographic, the big thing that we've started to see is the heavier skew towards people just being on Instagram versus being both on Facebook and Instagram. So I know like this morning I was building some audiences for potential like high school seniors in the state of Indiana. And I think it registered like 72,000 people on Facebook, but it recognized like 94,000 on Instagram. And so what we've been trying to do on our side as well from our campaigns that we build is kind of build a campaign or an ad set that's just targeting Facebook placements, and then one that's just targeting Instagram placements, because I think what we're finding, and especially with the younger ages now, is that their interest is in Instagram and they're engaging a lot better. And so it kind of helps you see where people are paying attention or best interacting with kind of the campaigns that you're building. Awesome. So yep, this is where you can kind of manage those placements, and then looking at the ads. This is where you'll kind of go to, or this is where you will go to build out your ad image, as well as like your headlines, your primary text, and all of those different fields to then run your ads. And so here you can see what I was talking about with the different placements and how you can get kind of a preview of what your ad will look like and everything that you have checked. I think this is super beneficial. And like I was saying, or kind of trying to give an example of, is like the Facebook stories. Sometimes if you don't have the right sized image to use, this is what the ad will end up looking like. And in some cases it might look fine, but it's like a better best practice to have the images that fit for each place before launching that placement. And so here's just, like I said, where you'll go to set up your ads. If there's content that you've already posted on your Facebook page that you would like to use for your ads, that is still a viable option. In ad setup, you just select use existing post, and it'll allow you to search kind of through the posts that you already have existing to then add to your campaign, or you can create one from scratch. And there are a lot of different options then that you get here for whether you're looking to use a single image or a video, or a carousel ad, which is one where you can kind of give more options of images to show for people to scroll through. And then down here is where you'll add in your kind of headline, your description that will also accompany your ad as it goes to show on the different Facebook or Instagram placements. And here it's giving me more options because I selected the carousel ad. And so then you can kind of see here how you can create a different headline or description for each item of the carousel. I'll select out of this quickly just to go back to single image or video. And another new thing that's been added to this that is also very helpful. So like I was kind of commenting with having the right image for each placement, rather than having to build out like a new ad or new ad set for each placement. Facebook now allows you to like select a specific image for each one that you would like to show, rather than like building out a new ad for each one, like I just said. So that's also been a very helpful field that we found on our side to make sure we're putting in an image that makes sense for each of the places that we want our ad to be placed across both platforms. And then down here, just website URL. This will be sometimes if you pick like a different objective, whether that be like engagements, because that can sometimes be like engagements with your Facebook page. This website URL can like change and it'll show a placement for just your Facebook page, things like that. And then you can also add a display link that kind of just replaces, if typically we have this, like we have a display link or something we'll put in. If I know for some of our campaigns, or Ivy Tech will sometimes have us like drive people to a Qualtrics form, and it's not always best to have our ad kind of showing like qualtrics.ivytech.com. It looks a little wonky, so we'll show a different URL so users kind of get more of a feel for like what we're trying to present. And then on here as well is where you can add your call to action button. And there are many options down here, but this is definitely like a key piece of running ads, or something we see is like very important in including on your ad, is kind of what the action is, or identifying like after you've put together your messaging and where you want to drive traffic, setting that call to action button is definitely key. Awesome. And then there's some other fields down here, but I think for our purposes, none of this tracking is anything too crazy that we need to get into. Hopping back over to here. I know we talked about ad placements. Any other kind of questions in regards to setting up campaigns or like best identifying audiences?
Yeah, we actually had a few good questions come in, so I'll go through those one by one. One question was, does Ads Manager allow multiple admins with full access, or is it built for just one admin only?
You can have as many admins as you want. You can have up to 25 like admins of any ads account.
Great. And is there any differentiation we should keep in mind with the campaign name versus the ad set name and the ad name, or should they all be the same, or what does that naming kind of hierarchy look like?
Yeah, I would say if you're not trying to like track anything too different between them, then I think it's more than fine to name them all the same. Like if sometimes when we're running smaller campaigns, so like express enrollments are events that Ivy Tech does a lot. So we'll name them like campaign, ad set, and the ad name the same thing. But if we're building a campaign and maybe we're targeting a list and we're in another ad set, we're targeting like a lookalike list, we'll try to add in like an identifier so we can see when we're reviewing performance, the differences and kind of how those performed.
So really more important for that tracking or that afterward, but not for the actual like setup and operating of the campaign.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. Okay. And I know you're not super familiar with our industry, but is there a specific type of ad that you think that maybe works better for us? I know you were mentioning targeting high school seniors earlier, which is interesting. That's a new thing this year for us too.
Yeah, I would say where we've seen more success, and especially with even like some of our clients lately, because we've been doing a lot more high school like outreach too, is I think the Instagram stories has been a big one, and also making sure to be like very mindful or very kind of intuitive of what you're trying to put there. And then I would say also basically, especially with the younger demographics, like anything that's an Instagram placement has been where we've seen more success in just getting people engaged.
Yeah. Is there a base amount you suggest spending on an ad?
There's not really a base amount. It really comes down to like how many people are in the audience that you're looking to target. And then I would say with that, it's then kind of setting that budget and being able to monitor. I would say frequency is a big thing that we monitor. So like once you launch a campaign, you can kind of sort performance fields, and they'll give you kind of all of these things that are in here, but I usually customize and add a frequency. And basically what frequency is, it's how often you're reaching like the same users in your audience. And I think that'll be kind of important to monitor for a lot of the things that you guys are trying to do, and something we monitor, because basically rule of thumb or best ad practices is like you want to be reaching people at a frequency of like 1 to 3. So that's like they're seeing your ad like 3 times a day, versus like if that number is like 10, you're probably flooding the people in your audience, and they're going to start disengaging from what you're trying to promote to them. And so frequency is like a column you can add here. Great. So yeah, back to the original question. I think it's kind of looking at the audience that you're looking to go after, and Facebook will kind of, if you start putting in money, they will tell you how much of your audience you'll reach too. So they'll help you kind of give you an idea of what's going to happen.
So then is there a good average cost per result or something that we should be looking for? Or does that depend maybe on what your end goal is?
I would say, yeah, it definitely depends on your end goal. Cause like one metric we look at is like CPM. So like I said, cost per 1,000, like cost per 1,000 people looking at our ad. Usually we typically see that in some of the things we do between like $5 to $7. It will sometimes typically be slightly higher on Instagram, but that's also, I think from what we found, it's just becoming a more competitive place to try to market to people on. And then like cost per result wise, for things that we do, we typically see between $3 to $5, with it sometimes being a little over again for Instagram in some cases.
Great. And then one more, is there a time of day that you feel works best for pushing out ads, or do you normally run them all day?
Yeah, so we typically run them all day. I would note like a few things when building out campaigns. Like if you know you're going to target a list, it's going to take Facebook about 24 hours to match that list and then be able to start serving ads. And there's usually a couple of hours for like the ad approval process in the platform too. So those are definitely things we keep in mind. We usually try to like build a campaign out a day or two before it's actually supposed to launch, just so everything kind of has enough time on the back end to start going through the approval process and then launching. But we typically we run ads all day, like pretty regularly. And Facebook kind of optimizes for time of day for like when there's best finding the audience out there.
Good to know. And then when you say, you build it out a day or two before, do you have the capability to say, but don't put it live until XYZ time? Or is it like just whenever it's done processing is when it happens on Facebook?
Yeah. So whenever you set like your start date for, that's when it'll start going. So we'll be like even this week, I built some stuff out on Monday, the 26th, and then it launched like this morning at 9 a.m. So you can set like it schedules it, but won't launch it until whatever time or date you put for the start date.
Great. Let me see if I got any more here. I think, whoa, they're coming in all at the same time. What types of things do you suggest we consider before deciding to run an ad for our organization to see if it's worth the money?
I would say I always find it helpful, even when I like have an idea of a new audience, to even just go into the platform and kind of build a dummy campaign and just see if the audience is there. Because I think that's always a telltale sign of like, okay, if I have this message that I know I want to deliver to like this audience, how many of those people already are out there or like already exist on a social platform, and how much do we think that'll cost? So I think I find it helpful to just kind of jump in and start building the campaign like it's going to happen, but you can always like discard it and not publish it, but it kind of helps you get an idea of what exists or what the audience is out there.
Yeah. In terms of assets, have you seen a big difference in results with video versus static, illustrations versus photos, sound, no sound?
Yes. So I would say we have seen a lot more success lately with some of our clients with videos. But I think it also then comes back to like the intention of what you're trying to do with the campaign. If it's just like awareness or reach or kind of like showing people about your brand or introducing it, I think videos are very helpful. If you're trying to get somebody to like take an action or like visit your landing page or go somewhere else and sign up, videos don't perform as well because people usually get lost in the 15 to 30 seconds of something they're watching and then move on right after. So that's something to keep in mind. But we have seen also more of a preference towards images of actual like people versus just fully illustrated ads. So we used to typically kind of, run like a typical banner where it's just like all kind of text and just like a logo and no people featured in it. And we've started to see that people prefer seeing kind of the more human face in ads.
Good to know. And then this will be our last question. Thoughts on TikTok ads?
TikTok ads, we are starting to break into them because they just started into and they just kind of opened their advertising platform. So far, the response has been a little kind of hesitation. I think the audience that is on there, they're very protective of like, this is for user generated content. So there hasn't been, I think, as great of a response right off the bat to the ads, but I know it's something that we're looking to test and we're starting to test with some of our clients. But they do require higher minimums, I would say, is like the average daily spend has to be $50 a day. And I think the minimum campaign requirement is 500 for like a week or something like that. So that's still kind of a higher threshold you have to be willing to hit to run the ads.
Okay. Any last questions, last call for questions? Any last thoughts that you want to share, Emmeline, as well, before I throw it back to Hillary?
I I don't think so. No, thank you guys for your time. I know in the end of the presentation, I included like a best practices document of just a few things. And I can send that link over to you again, Ashley, as well. But if any other questions come up, feel free to send those over to me and I can get those answered by email, just to kind of help you guys in this process.
Great. Yeah, I can share that document with everybody. Writing it down so I don't forget. Hillary, did you want to chime in?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. I am pasting in the chat here a quick survey for you all just to give us some feedback on the presentation. And of course, it didn't come as a link. I hate it when it does that, so sorry. But also, I just wanted to take a second to plug FCA Midyear, which is kicking off 2 weeks from today. So we hope to see everyone there. If your organization has not registered, you can do so. Let's see if this one comes through as a link. You can do so at this link. Let's see. Oh, that one went through. Great. And it is just $25 per member organization, $35 non-members. So please take a second to get that done, and we will see you 2 weeks from today.
Great. Thank you so much, Emmeline. This was fascinating. I feel like I learned so much. I thought I knew stuff and I was wrong, which was a really good feeling to know that I'm learning knowledge. So I hope everybody got some out of that. I am going to share her best practices document with you all. We also are recording this and that will get shared as well. I know some people mentioned it'd be good to follow along later while we're doing stuff. So thank you so much, Emmeline. We appreciate you putting the time in and educating us.
Happy to be here. Happy to help.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye.
Bye.